Welcome back to the show. I'm here with Elliotte Bowerman, and we're going to be looking at the opportunities of being a woman in technology today. And we're going to also look at leaning in versus leaping out, why you need to break the rules in tech, changing the bully dynamic of the tech industry, and glitter as a shame repellent. So welcome, Elliotte.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
Me too. And in case you don't know, Elliotte, she is the Unicorn Muse and co-founder of the Unicorn Scouts. And we will talk more about that towards the end of the episode. But right now, let's look at what the opportunities of being a woman in tech today are.
Yes, well, I have actually spent the last dozen years in the tech industry, and it has been so incredibly fulfilling to be a part of technologies that are really changing the world. And I think that anyone who's called to this industry is, in fact, a unicorn. We want to make something bigger than ourselves. We see the magic in the ones and zeros and in the opportunities that technology opens up for the world, right? Look at the incredible access that people have to money through technologies like PayPal and crowdfunding. Kickstarter has enabled myself to start a business and so many other people to turn their passions into actual products and into companies. So when we go into technology, we're in there because we want to do something more, and as a woman in technology, as any member of a minority group in this industry, it is often easy to get focused on a conversation around the challenges, around the gap in power and in pay and in play that exists for us. But I actually make the argument that we should be looking at the opportunities that we have as women on an individual basis. On a systemic industry, there are so much work to be done, and we know that. It has been going on for decades, and I am so deeply grateful to everyone who's making those pushes. But we have to personally get out of that gap ourselves and get over it so that we can push from the other side, right? And in order to do that, we get to explore the opportunities for our own personal growth in our respective fields in tech, and to really think about how much this industry needs a variety of voices and opinions and thoughts, and life perspectives. I was telling you before, I joined this company and they were working on a mobile app for dating. And it was a hetero-focused dating app, and there was not a single woman on the team until I joined. And so we're going through a feature list, and I'm having this conversation, as a woman, that feels creepy, and being able to think about how valuable our voices are, how valuable our perspective is to this industry is really, really important. I have heard a lot of very sad stories about women who have just gotten tired of the bullying environment that is often prevalent in these companies. And we'll talk about that in a little bit, but they've ended up leaving. And I totally understand, and it can get really exhausting. And I've certainly gone through composting phases myself. But if we all leave, then the female voice is lost in this technology, and it's so much about what is the future and where our lives are being built, and this ones and zeros world can add up to so much power and so much benefit for everyone when we get our voices involved and when we get our perspective in there. So I think it's an incredible opportunity, and we also get to play by very different rules. In fact, we get to break a lot of the rules because we are rare and special and unique, and we get to do things our way because the rules don't work for us as women in tech. Programmer rules do not apply. We're just not going to be those people. So we get to decide how we're going to be in this industry. And And that's about a lot of different elements inside of ourselves, as well as culturally and as a company and as an industry.
Now, you mentioned the rules in tech. I'm curious, what do you think the rules are in tech, and which
Sure.
ones should we break?
Well, I think one of the rules is that you need to fit in with a culture. That you should be wearing a hoodie and and maybe riding a skateboard around the valley, but you don't have to do that as a woman. Like, if a culture is particularly more male centric in a company, and you know that going into it, which I have certainly known going into a number of opportunities, I have very, very consciously chosen not to fit in to the entire culture. You don't want to not talk to people. You don't want to not connect, but that doesn't mean that you need to change who you are to be a part of a company. In fact, the best thing you can do is be more of you. Like, be louder, be bigger, like, put on a persona, wear glitter if you want to. Like, I wear a horn physically to remind myself of being a unicorn, and I have this rainbow mane because it's like how I feel I want to show up, and it allows me to have a different conversation, and it allows me to be seen by other people in a very particular way. And so it's really important to think about how you want to be seen and how you want to be versus how to fit into a culture. Because what's amazing is that the more you show up, people start reacting to that, and you can actually start shifting cultures on your own. If you want to have a company where people are going to bring in snacks to share, like, bring in snacks to share first, right? If you want to have a culture that's going to play video games, like, bring in the video game, and it doesn't have to be some violent, busty, gun-toting person, right? Like, play Mario Brothers. Like, it can be whatever you want it to be. So thinking about fitting into a culture is not the right approach, especially for women, especially when we're the minority in a culture. We don't need to change. In fact, we need to be more true to ourselves.
And I think that's good advice for anyone, woman or man.
Absolutely. I talk about myself as a woman in tech, but it's true of anybody who just feels different. So
that would be 98% of people in the tech industry, I would imagine.
Absolutely. Yeah, and there's still something that happens, though, when you get into an office and herd dynamics start happening, and you hear about people who kind of things can go pretty far before somebody raises a flag, right? And if you can be solidly true to who you are, then hopefully those flags can happen a lot sooner, because, and I'm not just talking about sexual politics stuff in an office, I'm talking about even like product stuff, right? Like, I love QA because they are supposed to raise the flags, like, and they get to see, like, hey, this is a problem, raise the flag, raise the flag, raise the flag, right? But if we can all have our different our different voices heard as much as possible, things are so much better, right? And so not being afraid of conflict is another really challenging rule for a lot of people, right? And I think in tech, it's in an environment that is more encouraging than a lot of industries, of people having dissenting opinions and disagreements, and there are a million different ways to build something, and there are a million different feature options, and there are a million different ways to market something. So how do you make those choices? And so, again, being true to yourself is being able to stand up and disagree with an entire room of people. And so I don't know that technology has, as an industry, a lot of rules, but maybe that's just one to follow, is to use your voice. Everybody in tech is often encouraged, at least if you're in the right companies. And if you're told to be quiet and silent, then maybe you're not in the right place for you. Another rule that I really encourage women to break is one that happens in hiring conversations. So, and it kind of comes in two parts. one, it's really important to think about how you're interviewing this company as much, if not more, than they are interviewing you. If you have a talent that's in demand, then you are in a position of power in this dynamic. And so figuring out if you're a cultural fit and if the company will honor where you are in your life is super important. And so I actually work with a lot of women about transitioning from careers and jobs to lifestyle delivery systems. And so thinking about the lifestyle that you need this job to deliver to you is really important. So I have been a single mother for almost my entire career in technology. My daughter is almost 8, and she's incredible. And that has meant that I had to be home in order to get her from childcare by 6 o'clock. And I could not get into the office until I dropped her off and then commuted in. So I had to make it very clear to every hiring manager that this was my deal. And they're technically legally not allowed to ask me if I have children or what my limitations are. They're not allowed to ask me about my health issues, but those are realities. Like if I have a limit, then I want a company that's going to honor that, not just tolerate it and then limit me in opportunities and limit me in my career path, but to actually say, you're so worth it. We want you here. And we're so delighted to have you here. We're going to support you and kick you out of the door at 4:30 to go get your kid. Right? Because I was willing to work at home at night to do the things that I had to do to be in my role. But I also needed them to be willing to know that I had to get home. And so when you're having that conversation, it's super, super important that you volunteer these things, and I love that. I think in Lean In by Sheryl Sandberg, she talks about how she asks women what they want in their lives. Do they want to have children? Do they want to travel? Do they want to get more education? Like, what do you want, right? How do you want to live your life? And then planning that within the particular job that you're applying for or that you have, or within your whole career trajectory is super important. So finding the people who can be advocates for you starts with your hiring manager, starts with the people who you're going to be working with. And if they aren't on board with your life, like you're spending a third of it with them. Like, why do you want to be with them people, right?
Right. There's no point continuing at that if you find that out. Better to learn that up front.
Absolutely.
So what about, a lot of people change jobs, but, I think some women feel they have to be 110% ready for taking a more challenging position.
Yeah, there's been a lot of research around the different mindsets that men and women in particular have. There's a joke that goes around, especially with women, about how I wish I had the confidence of a mediocre white man. And there's a hard truth in that, that I think is a challenge for a lot of women to overcome. And it doesn't need to be, but it's just something to keep in mind, is that typically women think they need to have 100% of the qualifications for their next job up, right? So that ends up meaning that they're working multiple people's jobs or much higher than their current level of salary and title in an effort to be ready for that next job. When men typically are willing to apply and think that they are able to do that job at 60%. And so there is a self-stopping line that happens for certain women, in fact, a lot of women, in that we say, oh, I'm not quite ready. I'm going to go get more training. I need another 6 months. I need to do this other thing. And for me personally, I took a tremendous leap in my career from being the director of public relations for a really hot tech startup to becoming the VP of marketing for a mobile app development agency. Was this huge gap. I had not done a lot of the things that were on that list of job requirements and expectations. But what I knew was that I could learn them and that I could delegate many of them because I was going to be a VP and I wasn't going to be doing the day-to-day things, right? So there are certain elements of experience knowing that like you don't have to be fully prepared, because you're going to be able to learn on the job really rapidly, especially when your money and your reputation are on the line. You're going to learn, you know, you're going to be reading, you're going to be making phone calls, you're going to hire a consultant, and you're going to just include that in a budget. If you're at a lower level, you know, if you're just getting started, it's really thinking about the opportunities that might be outside of your career, like, or your specific job, that also are skill sets that apply to you, right? So I went from journalism to public relations, and so I had a lot of writing background, even if I hadn't written a lot of press releases. And I had a lot of media relations from the other side, so I was more aware of things. And so I was able to say that I was higher than I necessarily had been in the industry, because I had these outside experiences and credentials. So it's really an incredible opportunity for women, because in tech in particular, you're able to bounce, you're able to jump. It's not actually like a ladder, it's a jungle gym. And if you're climbing and you're like, I'm going to be a product director, and then I'm going to go do graphic design, and then I want to do some marketing thing, and then I'm going to do this other part, like you can learn all of those things. And the most important skill to have is actually to learn and adapt. Because in technology, jobs are changing all the time. And a lot of the jobs that people have right now didn't even exist 5 years ago. I mean, look at the AR industry entirely, right? So I think that feeling fully prepared is not going to serve you as well as feeling ready to learn and to grow into something, and saying, I have 60 or 70% of everything on this list, and I am really smart and going to be able to close this, get these other things done really fast. And you don't have to tell the hiring person, you know, like you just...
So if someone's doing that and they're leaping for another job, what would you say about the salary negotiation? Because I know that's where a lot of women and many men fall down.
Yeah, I think there's some really exciting trends happening right now in the tech space in particular around transparency. I really admire Salesforce and Mark Benioff making the stand that they are doing an audit, looking at everyone's salaries and making sure if you have the same experience and the same like title seniority that you're getting the same pay. But we know that that's not the case in most companies. So number one, you should not accept the first offer. Right? It's a negotiation. And number two is that you have an opportunity to address the systemic pay gap that happens. Typically, women are getting paid about 20% less than men of the same experience and job title. So I know of women who have actually sent this pretty much verbatim email. Thank you so much. I'm very excited to work at this company. However, I require X, you know, which is 20% more. So say they offered $100,000, you're saying $120,000 as my salary. And they actually say, because typically women are offered 20% less than men for similar job roles. And if that is not the case, and that this is your company's salary rate, I require to see evidence of this pay for other people. You know, so you can actually require or request transparency from hiring managers, and you can just speak right out for women to say, typically I'm offered 20% less than men are, so I'm going to ask for 20% more.
I love it.
So the worst thing to say is no and start negotiating, right? And if they aren't willing to move the needle, then why are you going there?
There you go. So tell us a bit more about lean in versus leaping out.
Sure. So Sheryl Sandberg wrote a wonderful book called Lean In that some people really liked and some people really didn't. But at the crux of it, it was about women needing to take more of a role in power and in leadership. and taking a seat at the table, right? The table of being a decision maker in whatever aspect of your life. So, of course, she is the chief operating officer of Facebook, and there's a lot of focus on being a woman in technology in her book and in her organization. And I deeply admire what she says. I really enjoyed Lean In. But what I've discovered for myself and for a lot of women is that before we can lean into our power, we have to leap out of the inner gaps of shame and bullying that we experienced as kids and as women. And that it takes more energy than that soft leaning in, right? It takes this feeling of like really like bending at the knees and pushing off from the feet and like reaching up high and like leaping out of the junk that we have been buried in for a long time. And what I think is important is to recognize that feeling, to recognize that it's not always going to be easy. Leaning is like an easy, comfortable thing. And in fact, we have to get comfortable with discomfort, right? Like there was this wonderful talk at this conference where we met, Yes and Yes, Yes, where this woman said, I think roughly, discomfort is the cost of an interesting life. Right? Like that we are going to be uncomfortable, that leaping is not a thing that feels easy in our bodies unless we're like professional basketball players, right? And even then they're going for a slam dunk, like they might miss, right? So that leap is something that's risky. There's a cost to it. And I think we need to acknowledge that, and that big moves, big exciting changes, things that like make us nervous are often the things that we need to be following. Like I feel like the more scared I am of something, the more I need to do it. And the whole idea of resistance and that inner voice, that stuff that's like, oh, like I'm really feeling the edges around this, makes me think that that's the place that I need to be focusing. So those are the leaps that we have to take, and they're up and out of the limits, so if we're leaping out of our limits, then we can get to the place where we can lean into the table and take a seat of power. But it's gonna feel like a leap, until you're doing the things that feel comfortable, and until you're in those places of power, it's really uncomfortable. And even then, I think you should still be feeling uncomfortable when you're in that and doing something that also makes you feel like you're stretching and growing. So
maybe it isn't uncomfortable. Maybe we can reframe it as excitement.
That's true. Like I was just reading this book, You're a Badass by Jen Sincero, and also Super Better. This is the one, Super Better. I have it right here. Have you heard of Super Better by Jane McGonigal? It's amazing.
No.
She talks about gamifying your life. And one of the things that they talk about is that anxiety and excitement are the same chemical combination in your body, right? And the difference is that if you feel anxiety, you can actually start to reframe it as excitement in your brain by saying, I'm excited, get excited. Like if you actually say that when you feel anxious, it starts turning it into excitement. It's this insane, amazing, like chemical reaction that happens. So if you're starting to feel afraid, you can be like, I'm actually really excited about this. And if you keep telling yourself those things, the words that you say to yourself and the words that you say out to the world become true. And it's really important that we use those powerful words and that positive focus when we're making any decision in our life, and especially when we're women in technology. That's why I want to focus on the positives and the opportunities and the benefits of being a woman in this industry, instead of on power gaps and play gaps and pay gaps and all of those things. It's like, we know that's out there, but we also know.
I've heard of pay gap and power gap. What's a play gap?
Well, I think that we should be having way more fun with what we're doing. We should be really enjoying it, and that there feels like there's a gap in the fun levels that a lot of people are having, and especially women. And I think it often comes from this stress about maintaining your position and being in this industry and all of those things, or it's like just in this dynamic, this mindset that we have that we're supposed to be working really hard and super stressed out. At least that's a dynamic I had for a long time. I sure hope that younger folks are smarter than that. But we should be having fun and being excited about what we're doing. This woman told me that I should have a jump out of bed instead of a job, like a job is like a jump out of bed. Like, are we having fun? Are we playing at what we're doing? And if we aren't, then we can look for opportunities to do that. I was like in these amazing brainstorming mobile app sessions, and I started bringing in Play-Doh and markers and Post-it notes and making all of this stuff. And they're like, what are you doing? I was like, we got to play. We got to get our brains into this more creative space. And it's so important for innovation, right? And we can be innovating in our lives regardless of what our career title is or our job title is. It's like, I'm playing in lots of different ways. And so I want more people to do that.
So what are some of the other negative voices in your head that you overcame?
Well.
Yes, let's open the kimono here.
Sure. Well, vulnerability is strength, right? I have struggled to love my body for my entire life. And when I was about 10, I started picking at my skin. And I have always been heavier. This is the spaceship container that I have. And I started wanting my body to look like the things that I was being told that it was, which was ugly and fat and awkward. And I still struggle with the picking, to be honest. And I have found that me loving my body is my final, it's my current frontier. I don't think it's my final one, but it's certainly my current frontier. And in fact, the conference where we met, the unconference, Yes and Yes, Yes, is a pool party, right, in Palm Springs in the desert. And I almost didn't go because I was so embarrassed about wearing a swimsuit. That when I got my tickets in April, I was like, maybe I'll just stay in the air conditioning inside and then people will come to me when they're thirsty and it'll be fine. And I have done so much work in the last 4 months to really love my body to the point that I rocked a bikini. My belly is out and it is not going back in. And I have these beautiful star streaks, my stretch marks from carrying a child. And I love my body now. I've started dancing. I tell my body how much I love it all the time. And it's hard as a woman to talk about that. And it was hard as a woman in a male-dominant culture to be larger and to be still in my power, to not feel this need to shrink, to literally not cross my legs sometimes. I literally would not cross my legs. I'd be wearing pants. I would actively sprawl. That power pose. I would be I'm just going to go as big as possible right here in this room and not be sorry about it, because it's so much about how we want to be seen in the world. And for the longest time, I wanted to be smaller. I wanted to fit these standardized, beauty magazine ideals. And that's never going to be me. But the me that I am is amazing. And I got my unicorn mane. I started wearing glitter every day at the office 3 years ago. I have a permanent horn tattoo. I have all these physical reminders of my inner magic. And there's a reminder of being seen. But I had to scrub the shame stripes off from being bullied as a kid. My dad is a dairy farmer. So to be a chubby girl who's really smart, not sorry about being smart, awkward, missed the memo about how to fit in, and never got that memo. I remember in 3rd grade, it just going, I clearly missed a meeting somewhere where everybody got together and said, this is what we're going to wear and this is how we're going to be. And I just kept thinking that there would be some meeting later. And there never was. There just wasn't. And so I had to make my own meeting, right? Like, and it was a meeting of one. It was me, and that was hard. And so scrubbing those shame stripes off has been a decades long journey, and I'm still doing it, and I'm still combating that in my life. But talking about it, being honest about it, encouraging other women to get into their glitter, whatever that shame repellent is for you, is so empowering for me. Like, I just finally can be seen as the person who is broken and beautiful for that. And I think that, like, the more we can own that part of ourselves, the more power we have too. And I'm not saying wear glitter every day if you don't want to, or that, like, if you are.
But I have seen you encourage other women to wear glitter as shame repellent.
Yeah, absolutely. Well,
tell us a bit about that.
I do that.
That's almost a little campaign you're running in San Francisco.
So I believe that glitter, our stardust, is what we're all made of. Like, we all have this sparkle inside of us. And when we were kids, that sparkle was super special and magical. And then it turned into this thing that we were supposed to be ashamed of, right? That herd mentality, pony fitting in thing happens. And if we can get our sparkles back and show them to the world, the stronger we're going to feel. So 3 years ago, I was the senior female in the history of this company with a lot of guys who were not awake. There are lots of amazing awake men and love them. These guys were not. And I started wearing glitter as a reminder so that when I looked in the mirror, I saw my own sparkles. And it became a shame repellent. They're reflective. So the more crap is kind of thrown at you, you sparkle back harder. It just reflects. Like, you cannot even absorb the shame. It's like armor. And so getting in your glitter is whatever that is. You know, when I was in my 20s, I wore power bling. It was like big, chunky, sparkly, like necklaces and earrings. And it was like right around my throat and on my heart so that I would be seen at a meeting. And I would and it was this weight to remind myself to talk, you know, to be like there. And it was my power bling. And then glitter started happening because I wanted to be wearing it and, like, be seen and sparkle with my eyes. And body glitter is awesome too. It's however you want to be seen, and it's also how you feel. So, like, whatever you feel powerful in is what you should be wearing. So glitter often becomes a metaphor, but it's also just straight up a thing that we can wear. So glitter is shame repellent. Go for it. Wear glitter. What are they going to say? Like, it's glitter because you can, you know?
So doing this helps you be more noticed at meetings, or makes you feel ready to confront things that need confronting? Or
well, it makes me feel more powerful, first of all. And it certainly sends a signal to the people I am in a meeting with that I'm a pretty sparkly, glittery person, and I have no problem wearing that. And yes, maybe it does, in some ways, give us a step up, right? Because it kind of can throw people a little bit. Like, they're looking at you and they're like, oh, wow, you've got glitter on. Like, yes, I do. Yes, I do. And so they're looking at you and they start smiling, or they even think it might be a little off. And, you know, the CEO one day, after like months of me wearing glitter, not always this bright and amazing, but like, after months, one day I'm in the board meeting and he goes, he just stops everything and he looks at me and he goes, are you wearing glitter? And I said, yes, I am, because I can. Like, and it just did, you know. It's like, it's makeup, right? And we get to play with that. We get to play with our appearance. And I'm a marketer, right? I'm the public face of a company. So having magenta hair at one point ended up doubling my salary because I just showed up and I wasn't sorry. And I was seen by a woke man who said, what will it take for you to come and work here? And I told him, and it was double what I had been making, you know? So the more, whatever it is that you want to show that makes you feel powerful is what glitter is. For me, it's actual glitter. but for you, it might be something else. And that's totally okay. I just find also glitter is a thing I can carry in my bag and transport around, and glitter jack an event. So, you know, like
what is glitter jacking an event?
Glitter jacking an event is showing up and saying, "Hi, I'm wearing," like you're wearing your glitter. You have a bag of glitter in your backpack, because I always do, and offering to put glitter on other women. And that's what happened when I was at Google's I Am Remarkable event last month. This wonderful woman, Patricia Dugan, had organized this great gathering of people from her Gather Social Club to come to Google and do the I Am Remarkable program, which was founded by 2 female employees of Google to help women learn how to sing their praises. It's a thing that we often struggle to do, is to not only recognize our achievements, but actually share them and promote ourselves. Right? So we have to get into the business of self-promotion so that we can be seen as the awesome people that we are. And so I Am Remarkable was going on, and I was there, and I had shown up as my, you know, I had my rainbow mane on. I didn't even have my horn in yet. I always have this one, but I didn't have my big one on. And this woman, Patricia, was like, "I love your glitter eyeshadow." I said, "Thank you. Would you like some?" And it just blew up from there. So like I have my glitter out, and I have this like special like eye cream to put it on so it doesn't fall off into your eyeballs. And that's important.
Yes.
And I put some on her, and then I had 20 women or 30 women, I don't even know how many women, came up to me and wanted glitter on themselves as well. You know, and it was just making that offer. If you don't want it, that's fine too. So I was able to put this glitter on all these women and remind them that glitter is shame repellent, and that we're all in this sparkle space together. And when we're in that sparkle space, we don't feel ashamed of anything that we are or anything that anyone else is. We're not going to put shame on each other. We're not going to be zombie unicorns. We're going to all support each other in this space, and we're all going to sparkle harder. And being able to do that was just incredible. And so women are sharing their stories of remarkability with each other and taking the microphone. And it was so exciting because I got to talk to one of the organizers of I Am Remarkable. You know, it's a volunteer-driven effort at Google. And we ended up having breakfast the next week to talk about how to put more physical reminders and to help women really feel like they can show their remarkability more beyond the one workshop, which is part of wearing glitter. You know, is just, I am a unicorn, and I am going to show that to the world. And you're a unicorn too. Like, whatever that means for you, it means showing your magic.
Now, you mentioned zombie unicorn women. What is a zombie unicorn woman in tech?
So it was interesting. I was at this improv event a couple weeks after Yes and Yes Yes, and a fellow yeser was given this slide presentation, and the topic was zombie unicorns, and she was talking about it, and she was just being very funny and silly about it. But I started thinking about the idea of a zombie unicorn, and there is an interesting dynamic that happens amongst women in general, and particularly amongst women at work, that sometimes women are not as supportive of each other as we could be. And especially in technology companies, when it feels like there's only so much space, the higher up you go, for the minority woman to be there, that sometimes unicorns, women in technology, turn into zombie unicorns, and fear takes over, and they start eating at the younger unicorns, right? They start eating their brains and taking their ideas and not supporting their growth. Right. And so I have empathy for these unicorns, because they are rare, magical creatures too. Like, they have gotten to this place of power, and they're doing something really special and important. and they've gotten this zombie fear that's taken over, and now they're like, oh, I'm going to like not be supportive, and I'm going to limit your growth, and I've experienced this, and I have found that due to dynamics, as a woman who is especially lower than the zombie unicorn above you, if this is your dynamic where there's a zombie unicorn woman and you are below that person and you're feeling like they're eating at you, the best you can do is have empathy for them and appreciate their unicornness and run. Like, that's what you can do. Like, because if you approach them about it, if you tell them, hi, I don't feel like you're being very supportive. Hello, I'm looking for more mentorship, more opportunities for growth, more money, any of those things, it's not often going to go well at that point. Like, they need to wake up on their own, and it's usually not going to be from other unicorns that they get that wake-up call. So as a unicorn, you got to run. Like, you just cannot be around the zombies. Like, we're running, right? Because we've got to be in places where we can be supported and not worry about having our brains eaten. And I know it sounds crazy. It's one of the negative things that I like, that makes me sad. And I have been so honored to be able to hire a lot of women, to be able to be a manager and support their growth and promote women and get them higher salaries and make sure that they're getting paid the same as their male counterparts. But I've experienced, like, earlier in my career, I experienced the zombies and I had to run.
So let's talk about why security is a lie in tech jobs today, and why, in fact, the search for safety is dangerous and it could be limiting your career. Yeah,
well, so security in general is just a falsehood, right? Like that that things aren't going to change is I mean, the one constant thing we have is change. So the way that especially technology companies are built, you know, in startup land, if the product doesn't go well, jobs are gone. If you don't get the funding that you need, jobs are gone. If something changes direction and they need other skills, jobs are gone. Even having equity, jobs are gone. You know, like, I was at that company wearing my glitter, things were going really well, and then there was this huge financial scandal. Like, I'm doing everything right as the VP of marketing, and the company blows up. Like, publicly traded company just poof, disappears into the ether, and it's just gone. And wow. Yeah, right? And so that security doesn't come from external sources. The only security that I truly think we have is confidence in our skills and a crew behind us of people that love us. Like, if we have confidence in ourselves and we have, like, some champions in our, you know, behind us, like that community, then whatever changes come, we're going to be ready for. But if we think of playing it safe and staying small and being quiet instead of speaking up, and not pushing for the promotion, not applying for that job that feels risky, that we're excited about, but we're nervous, we're not ready for, like, those things mean that we end up actually not only limiting ourselves, but we could actually be stopping ourselves entirely. Because in tech in particular, if you're not growing, then you're going, you know, like, if you're not getting new skills, if you're not exploring something else, if you're not learning about a new technology, if you're not ready to take a leap, even internally, then the tech is going to move faster than you. You know, and so it's actually very dangerous for your career. So that safety of familiarity and comfort is really going to limit you. So again, you've got to get into that uncomfortable, excited place, and leap, you know, and that is really where growth is. And yes, and then save some money. Okay, like, if you're chasing the unicorn startups and not saving a little bit of money for a rainy day, that's a risk too.
Right, because that gives you a comfort zone that you can last for a certain number of months.
Absolutely.
You find
Absolutely.
something else.
Yeah, and if something gets like really sideways and uncomfortable, then you know that like your next paycheck is not required for you to eat, right? Like, so there is a certain degree of freedom in having some money aside for that. I've actually thought about how amazing it would be if we could have a whistleblower fund, you know, for women who are afraid to speak up because they really need to pay the rent. Like, could we have a safe house for them? Like, you know, like if you really can't, if you're afraid of what's happening and you're financially stuck to where you are, that can make you be more, you know, silent or afraid to take that leap.
So you mentioned at the beginning you co-founded the Unicorn Scouts. What exactly is a Unicorn Scout, and who could join?
Well, anyone can join. The Unicorn Scouts is an organization that my daughter and I started in January. And it came about through this download that I had around the idea that I had missed the memo, you know, that I had really never fit in, and that I had gone from being bullied as a kid to being bullied in high school to being an oddball in college and then going into a bullying industry in technology. And that throughout all of that, that the joy that I found in my life really came in college and then as an adult when I found my community. And that I have a little girl who also doesn't quite fit in, and she's magical and she's wonderful. And the earlier we can all find this community of magic and fit in and celebrate our differences, and learn these powerful skills of shame resilience and being creatively expressive and learning our boundaries and how it feels, as well as what it means to say yes. Like, what does my yes feel like? Learning those things are really important. And Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts are great organizations for the people that fit them. But there are a lot of people who don't. And so the Unicorn Scouts is that alternative organization for alternative folks. And it definitely appeals to younger families. You know, I say probably around 5 years old when you can like kind of play on your own. The sweet spot amongst kids seems to be like 8 to 12-year-olds. But then there's this magical thing that happens where there are adults who don't have kids who totally love the Unicorn Scouts too. And so we are playing an interactive odyssey that gets us skill building without it feeling like work. So it's whimsy. And I kickstarted that with Liliana in April, and we raised over $10,000, and our first Odyssey begins in October. So we've been doing these amazing activities at different festivals and events around the Bay Area and the West Coast, and just to kind of play test and grow our community. And we have more than 200 people who are Unicorn Scouts who are joining us, and that is growing exponentially as people are spreading the message of playing into our magical power.
Fabulous.
Yes.
So if people wanted to find you online, what are the best ways to do that?
unicornscouts.com. We'll send you right now to our Facebook page as we're getting our website fully loaded. You can also find us at Twitter at Unicorn Scouts, on Instagram. I'm on Instagram at Unicorn Muse, which is my efforts to work with women in technology on conscious life crafting and getting into your glitter. So we play the Unicorn Scouts game and much more together. So Unicorn Scouts, everything. That's where we are.
Fabulous. Well, thanks for saying yes to coming on the podcast, Elliotte.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It's been such a pleasure, and I am so excited to answer any questions that anyone might have and post in comments. I'll definitely get back to them.